Spider-Man Brand New Day has been announced as the title for Tom Holland's newest outing as Spider-Man, and with John Watts no longer in charge, it's up to Destin Daniel Cretton to lead us into a new frontier of Spider-Man stories. To me, this is an incredibly important responsibility. When most people want to consume Spider-Man stories, they'll probably just end up turning on a Spider-Man movie. From that point on, it is the movie that will inform the people about who Spider-Man is, despite years of existing material on the character. And this is the part where I confess that Tom Holland's take on Spider-Man has been pretty unappealing to me so far. I can't say that he's a horrible Spider-Man. I think he's well casted, physically capable of playing the webhead, mentally capable of acting out the scripts he's given, but it's something about the way his movies go that turned me off. Captain America Civil War was this Spider-Man's first appearance, and in that movie, I think he's everything he needs to be. He's one hero in a movie about many, so the film can't be all about him. He gets time to introduce himself and a little bit of what his home life is like. We get a touch of him talking about what being a superhero means, and we get to see him battle it out with the Avengers, and he is incredible out there, cracking jokes, taking down some of Captain America's finest. He proves himself a formidable force, but tainted with some naivety, whatever. For his first appearance, that's a-okay with me. This whole young, plucky hero thing looks good on him. Now, we head over to Spider-Man Homecoming, my favorite movie in the franchise. Yes, my favorite movie in the franchise. We'll talk about that later. Peter is still stuck under Tony Stark's foot, as Tony Stark pretty much does nothing but make sexual comments about Aunt May and fly in when Tom Holland needs a spanking. There's elements of Tom Holland trying to balance his school life with his Spider-Man outings, and that's the kind of stuff I really like, until it's dampened down by Peter's best friend finding out that he's Spider-Man. This is Ned Leeds, the guy in the chair, the comedic relief in a movie that's pretty much already a comedy, honestly. Who, by the way, is a ripoff of Miles Morales' best friend, Gonke Lee. Now, before I go on, I have to talk about how messed up this is before some anti-DEI moron tells you that Ned is bad because he's not a white man. What are we gonna do when Miles Morales gets adapted into the MCU? It's gonna happen. It's inevitable. Are we going to shove a vital character of his to the side because Tom Holland's movies ripped him off and gave him a different name? The average moviegoer will say, "Who's this ripoff of Ned Leeds?" before I pelt a Marvel Masterworks book at their fucking head. This guy isn't Ned Leeds at all. Ned Leeds is the guy who dates Betty Brant after she dumps Peter Parker. Peter pretty much hates this guy, and now he's his best friend? So I ask you, what's the problem? The fact that he's not a white man like he was in the comics? Or the fact that he's robbed from a black character's story, forcing him to either get sloppy seconds by writing in what was his in the first place, or ignore him entirely, comic accuracy be damned? And the answer is not both. Anyway, Ned Leeds knows Peter is Spider-Man, and that means that Peter is no longer alone in his crusade as Spider-Man, as he will always have Ned to help him as his guy in the chair. But you know what? If it's just Ned, that's fine. I honestly find him really funny, and I think he's a big contributor to the comedic tone of these movies, especially since he helps get the ball rolling between Peter and Liz, his love interest in this movie. Their relationship is really cute, until it is entirely ruined by the fact that her dad is the Vulture, which is a twist I really like. Peter is forced to ruin his relationship with Liz over his responsibility as Spider-Man. Now, this isn't to say that I think Peter needs to suffer for a Spider-Man story to be good, but Peter is doing the hard thing here. He's living a double life to try to make the world a better place, and it makes sense that he must suffer for his good intentions. In life, sometimes doing the right thing is hard, and I think there's no better a character than Spider-Man to demonstrate this. After all, the event that makes Spider-Man who he is proves this. He lets the criminal run past him, and it was probably the easiest thing in the world to do, until that criminal kills Uncle Ben. Like it or not, this moment shapes Spider-Man into the character we know today. And I can't lie, I do feel like Tom Holland's version of the character suffers for not explicitly experiencing it or acknowledging that it ever happened. His speech from Civil War can only carry him so far, and you can't break the show not tell rule forever. We only kind of know why he's Spider-Man, and these movies rely on you already knowing about Uncle Ben, so they don't have to show it to you. I just think that it wouldn't hurt to shed a little more light on it, instead of trying to replace that moment with something else, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Peter loses Liz because he chooses to run off and beat up her dad as shitty homemade suit Spider-Man because Tony Stark took away his better suit. Tony then gives it back to him after seeing that he doesn't need it to do what's right, blah blah blah, which is a fun callback to something his boyfriend Steve said to him once. And this is when Aunt May walks in on him changing into Spider-Man and his secret is revealed. "Aunt May, I beat up criminals in long underwear. Do you have any opinion on this? Anything to say? I imagine it's probably hard to cope with the fact your only remaining relative goes out at night to fight armed criminals and..." Nope, I don't care that much. Oh. Spider-Man Homecoming was a pretty light-hearted movie, and you know what, that's fine with me, alright? There's some touches of drama in there that I actually like. You know, not every Spider-Man story needs to be a heartbreaking, tear-jerking tale, but it's also great when a Spider-Man story stops to treat its characters like real people with nuanced thoughts, emotions, and opinions. Aunt May finding out Peter is Spider-Man is a great chance for Aunt May to have some good character writing. Maybe you could draw from some stuff that J. Michael Straczynski set up. You know, the story he did where Aunt May found out Peter was Spider-Man. In this story, one of the most emotional conversations these characters have ever had takes place. Aunt May has never outwardly known Peter was Spider-Man in a Spider-Man movie before, and this was their chance to show us how deep their relationship could be, how deep they could be as characters. But nah, Aunt May isn't really that important to Tom Holland's Spider-Man story, especially not in Far From Home, the following movie. I mean, I can't really blame her, considering that the movie doesn't take place in New York and there was this massive event in between these movies, but what does that say about these characters? That their emotional beats can be sidelined for whatever the hell the Avengers have going on? So yeah, Aunt May is just cool with Peter being Spider-Man, no questions asked, along with pretty much everyone else in these movies. This is something I find really lacking about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, being that Spider-Man isn't really personal to Peter anymore. Spider-Man's able to be bossed around by Nick Fury the whole movie because he knows who he is. Mysterio, the villain of the film, immediately figures out Peter is Spider-Man because it's the most open secret in the world. MJ is able to call out Peter as Spider-Man because he's just horrible at keeping his secret. In these movies, if you know Peter's secret, you are forced into one of two categories. You are a friend of Spider-Man, you support him unconditionally, and sometimes you end up in danger when the plot needs you to. Either that, or you're a villain. This approach to all of Spider-Man's side characters is so formulaic, and it makes them all really samey. Especially since we barely get to know a thing about any of these characters. What do we know about Ned Leeds other than what his personality is like? Any trauma? Any definition? He likes Legos? That's not enough for me, okay? I need more than that. What about MJ? Do we know anything about her? No, because that's her whole gimmick, being mysterious and keeping to herself and hating everything. You want some more info on the character? Okay, fine. The third movie mentions that she has a dad. Are you happy? What do we know about Aunt May? That she might be in a fling with Happy Hogan? That's an odd writing choice, considering that the last notable thing that happened to her was getting sexually harassed by Tony Stark to her adopted nephew's face.
Hey May, how you doing? What are you wearing? Something skimpy, I hope.
Like seriously, I can't think about anything notable about Aunt May in these movies other than she's treated like a sex object and either she's harassed by Tony Stark or Happy Hogan is crying because he doesn't get to hit that anymore. Like, yeah, she comforts Peter sometimes, but like, what's so special about that, you know? Whose mom doesn't comfort them unless they're a piece of shit? And I mean mom in like the loose sense. I know she's not actually related to... Okay, anyway. What do we know about these characters' pasts? About what defines them? What they've been through that would lead them to being so on board with their loved one, Peter, putting his life on the line every day? Nothing. They are his ride or dies, and we get no scenes dedicated to them founding their care for Peter. They never talk about anything meaningful or disagree about anything important. Nope, they're all just along for the ride with Spider-Man, not a defining character moment to be seen. And then we finally get to Spider-Man No Way Home, where the world's worst kept secret is revealed. Look, I like Spider-Man No Way Home, alright? It's an incredibly easy film to like at the surface level. It brings in the two previous Spider-Men and some of their villains, and for some people that's enough for the film to be above criticism. But I don't know, man. This is MCU Spider-Man, Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man, but by the end of this movie, his life is completely demolished by characters that weren't even built up in his own movies. They are characters from other dimensions. We are talking about Spider-Man, Marvel's #1 street tier character. This isn't Doctor Strange. This isn't a character that is supposed to regularly travel the multiverse, alright? Just forget all this Spider-Verse hype for a second, okay? Spider-Man already has movies about the Spider-Verse. And now he's being grouped up in the superhero multiverse trend. I thought we hated this shit. His greatest villains don't even have the credit of being from his own movies. Sam Raimi's Green Goblin has more smoke for Tom Holland's Spider-Man in this movie, as if Tobey Maguire isn't sitting right there. I mean, I know he stabs him, but come on, that was easy for the Goblin. He was right there. Hell, the Green Goblin even kills Aunt May in this movie. And you know what? I feel like this was a choice they wanted to make from the start of this film. Because the whole movie, everyone is talking about how moral Aunt May is, how noble she is all of a sudden. So of course, they kill her off so she can say Uncle Ben's famous righteous words. This moment does not fix Tom Holland's Spider-Man for me. To me, this scene is an admittance that this stuff should have been there from the get-go, and they killed Aunt May because it was the only way they knew how to inject this important mantra of the character back in. And I know this because it was a dumbass idea that I had before the movie even came out, because I wanted this stuff there from the get-go. Am I satisfied that I predicted this plot point in a tweet? No, because in the end, I hate that my stupid ass 19-year-old brain was able to predict this fixer-upper ass plot point. I hate that my favorite characters' movies could be so predictable. I appreciate No Way Home and what it set out to do, but it's a film in a set of movies that heavily base themselves on the plot threads of other films. Spider-Man Homecoming requires you to watch Captain America Civil War and maybe the first Avengers and the first 3 Iron Man movies to fully understand what is happening. Spider-Man Far From Home requires you to see Infinity War and Endgame. Spider-Man No Way Home requires you to be a Spider-Man fan in order to fully enjoy the movie. At the end of the day, I just kind of wish that these movies could stand on their own, because what do they have without the wider MCU? Are the characters in these movies, other than Peter or the villains, at all notable? I can't really say so. There are 2 vital parts of Spider-Man missing for me. In my Spider-Man stories, I like well-defined motivations for Peter's heroism, and I like good, deep, and meaningful side characters. And I can't really say that these movies fit the bill. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is robbed of a moment equivalent to the shooting of Bruce Wayne's parents, and every movie in the franchise either tries to make you forget that ever happened, or fill that void with the death of another character. Every side character in these films have no impact on Peter's emotional state and are purely there to support Peter no matter what. And there's no depth to them, no backstory. And if something does happen to a side character in these movies, they are carted off to never be seen again. Speaking of never being seen again, do you guys remember the Scorpion? Do you remember that guy? Honestly, do the plots of these movies even matter anymore after the reset at the end of No Way Home? Look, I can acknowledge that this is a great jumping off point for Spider-Man, but it's only because he has been so stripped down that it's almost like he's starting new, alright? There's nowhere to go but up. I'm sure Spider-Man 4 will be great, but I just ask that it fix one thing about those previous movies, and it's giving Peter side characters that actually matter or are affected by the plot. Why does everyone love the previous Spider-Man movies? It's because they actually care about making you feel things, and not just making you laugh. They do this by giving the characters things to think about, various emotional ups and downs, actual, tangible drama. Let's think about this for a second, okay? Compare Harry from Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 to Ned. Both of these characters are best friends to Peter, and both of them get 3 movies to define their character. And yet, Harry is the only one who can actually say that he went through things in every movie. Harry is jealous of the bond that Peter and Norman have, only to see his father die by the end of Spider-Man 1, and he swears revenge. Then, in Spider-Man 2, he berates Peter for chasing Spider-Man around, only to find out that Peter is Spider-Man. Finally, in Spider-Man 3, Harry spends the whole movie trying to get back at Peter until he realizes his father's death was his own fault, which ends with Harry sacrificing himself to save the man who didn't actually kill his father. That's a lot of stuff to take in, okay? Now let's look back at Ned and see what he goes through in MCU Spider-Man. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Ned is banned from the school computers for gooning. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Ned has a fling with Betty Brant that ends by the end of the movie. Is this what MCU Spidey writers think that development is, giving characters meaningless flings? In Spider-Man No Way Home, Ned forgets who Peter Parker is, along with everyone else. And besides the fact that in every Spider-Man movie, Ned is Peter's guy in the chair, no questions or quarrels present ever. There is no drama there. There is no emotional substance. And before you say, you just want every Spider-Man movie to be Spider-Man 2, and you don't like stories unless people suffer. Firstly, I say, honestly, yeah, sometimes. And secondly, I say, have you never heard of conflict before? You can't have a story without conflict between characters. Especially if you're writing a story about Spider-Man, a character who was built off of mixing soap opera drama with superhero stories.
What if the writer is attempting to create a story where nothing much happens, where people don't change, they don't have any epiphanies, they struggle and are frustrated and nothing is resolved?
First of all, you write a screenplay without conflict or crisis, you'll bore your audience to tears.
I just hope that Spider-Man Brand New Day keeps this in mind, alright? I hope it is recognizing what other people love about other, Spider-Man adaptations. Why do people love Spectacular Spider-Man, Why do people love Spider-Man the Animated Series? Why do people love TASM 1 and 2? Why do people love the Raimi movies? It's because those movies actually care about creating a network of friends and people around Peter Parker that have things actually happen to them. Honestly, I hope Spider-Man Brand New Day is really good. I hope I have nothing to complain about. And I hope the people making it have a fun time doing it whether or not I hate it. I've wanted to talk about my issues with the Tom Holland movies for a long time, and I know you guys probably won't be satisfied by this video because I kind of feel like this video doesn't demonstrate my points well enough. It feels like I'm just shooting shit at Tom Holland for the sake of it. but I promise, these are things that keep me from enjoying the movies, and they aren't just criticisms I'm pulling out of my ass, okay? I just hope you guys can see what I'm trying to get across, and I hope the writers of this next movie understand what makes Spider-Man so good in the first place, okay? Do you remember that cover of Spider-Man where he's posed up over a black backdrop with all of the important people in his life? And you know, this is a frequently referenced thing in Spider-Man comics. It's not just some mural, alright, that Spider-Man media loves to call back to. It is a demonstration of what is so important about Spider-Man. It's the fact that his social circle is filled with real people that actually have genuine thoughts and feelings, real people who could be harmed by Peter's antics as Spider-Man. It's not just some cover that gets referenced, okay? It's a real thing that has play in the plots of Spider-Man stories. And unfortunately, I just think that Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies don't really get that. And you know what? I don't get why I get so shit on for shitting on Disney Spider-Man. I thought you guys loved shitting on Disney. You know, I thought you guys loved shitting on She-Hulk. I thought you guys loved shitting on Marvel for treating their CGI workers like shit, okay? I hate the integrated suit. You want to know why I hate it? I don't just hate it from a design standpoint. I hate it because they covered up a incredible Spider-Man costume and because poor CGI workers were forced to put that shitty suit in the movie, alright? We didn't need to have the beautiful Far From Home suit covered with golden shit, alright? We didn't need to force those poor CGI workers to be away from their families, alright? For pennies on the dollar. Okay, I'm done complaining about Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, alright? I'll probably do a video where I talk about how good Raimi's Spider-Man movies are at some point, okay? I'm done complaining, alright? That last half of the video is unscripted. Don't take me too seriously, alright? I'm not a rapper. I'm not a writer. Whatever, dude. I'm out.